Welcome back, everybody. This is Terry Wager, Generator Coaching. I'm here with Bruce and Caesar. Looks like Caesar's joined us, and we're Boomerang Give to Get. I'm one of the coaches in here, and what we're talking about today is really deciding from fact, not feeling. And what does that really mean? How can we understand what drives people's beliefs, decisions, and behaviors? Now, for a long time, I've heard over and over many coaches talking about your numbers are facts and they are what's going to drive your business. And the reality is that's true. When we look at our businesses and we look at growing our businesses, numbers don't lie. People do, don't they? People lie. And it's not that they're going and deciding to lie. They're actually just believing the things that they tell themselves. I had a situation the other day. It's kind of embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you because the fact is that I think a lot of people go through this. Here's the deal. I came up for renewal in a coaching program that cost me a lot of money, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50K. And as I'm sitting there thinking about the money that I pay out and thinking about the money that I'm bringing in, and I'm looking at all of the money that I'm bringing in because I have multiple six figures. I've been doing very well. And it occurred to me that I'm making a lot of money and I don't necessarily know if I need that 50 grand that I'm paying out. Now, the funny thing is I'm sitting there looking at the numbers. The numbers are obvious. I have made the money I've made. The numbers for my clients, the money that they've made working with me is obvious. But what's not obvious is whether what I'm telling myself is right based on the numbers, or maybe there's an alternative truth that's also true. So talking to my coach about whether I'm going to continue or whether I'm going to go on my own, she said, "You got to be kidding me," when I said I think about going on my own. She said, "Would you have gotten the numbers you have gotten without the coaching?" And I thought about it for a minute. And the reality is I wouldn't have. I would have not got the numbers that I've gotten over the last couple of years that I've been working with her without her, because she helps me see me in a different way. She helps me see what's going on. And so the numbers are a fact. Numbers don't lie. But the problem is everybody that's reading the numbers has their own emotional experience and has their own story that goes with the fact. And we see it all over the place since I think Donald Trump got into office years back, where he started talking about fake news and fake news. What he's really talking about, fact versus speculation, fact versus trumped up news, created news or created ideas, created facts based on statistics. Now, this is something that I learned a long time ago, is you can use statistics however you want to. You can use numbers to define or to explain whatever you want to, pro or con. And so really, when we start looking at how we're making decisions from a place of fact versus a place of fiction, it's almost a work of fiction to think that we're not going to have emotions involved in the decision. Emotions are always going to be involved in the decision. We're not, at least in my estimation, from my experience with people, we're never going to be able to separate emotion from fact. Because every fact we have that we're looking at is really just something we believe very strongly, so we call it a fact. We can't boil things down. We can't break them apart into their very small minutia into what is fact, because we have a perception issue. And the perception is basically the way I see things. So the way I see things, the fact might look one way. The way you see things, the fact might look a different way. The data driving the fact can support both of our ideas. But the reality is, and I'll use the example of my coaching. The reality is I can use the fact that I've made a lot of money to prove that I don't need any more help. It proves it. It proves that I am making decisions and I am building a business strong enough that I don't need help. And her fact, based on those numbers, can prove that I could use the help. Because when you look at it, she helped me get those numbers in the beginning and taught me a way to do it. Both are true. Neither of them are wrong. However, when we start looking at where we want to go, do I want to try to do it on my own? Or do I want to try to grind it out? Do I want to stay at the level I'm at? Or can I level up? Now, this moves into the emotion of the thing. This moves away from fact, and this moves into what is the decision? What do I want? And so we move away from the data and we start to look at, okay, let's look at what I want. What I want is to continue to grow. If I look at my history, without this coach, I didn't grow the way I wanted to, and with the coach, I did. And so looking at the emotion of the situation, the scarcity part of me, the fear part of me doesn't want to spend the money. And so, in fact, instead of going from facts, using the emotion to identify what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way, and where my decision is coming from those experiences, now we can actually use our emotion to make a decision in a much stronger way. See, so many people talk about removing the emotion from the decision. So many people talk about removing that and separating it out. And it's funny because when people talk about that, they actually tell themselves a little story that we're actually going to remove emotion from the decision, and then we'll be able to really cognitively just think it through. It's not the case, is it? How many decisions have you ever made that there wasn't a desire involved, or there wasn't a fear involved, or there wasn't some kind of drive behind the decision? The reality is any decision that we make, and this is a fact, any decision we make has emotion laden in it. It's just in all pieces of it.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
Now, the question that I always have for people is the emotion from a victim-dominated emotional state? Is it from a control emotion state? Like trying to control yourself, trying to not be scared? Or is emotion a balanced, intentional, what do I want and how do I want to move forward? See, it's not about separating emotion from fact. It's not about feeling versus fact. It's about how to get into a resourceful, emotional place where you're not triggered by fear and you're not trying to overcome something, you're not trying to battle. One of the things I talk about is we cease fighting everyone and everything. We work together with other people. We work together with our emotional states. We work together inside of ourselves and outside of ourselves to move everyone forward. And so if we're working together, then we have to be able to identify the emotions that got stirred up at the decision. What's going on for me? What do I really want? What am I afraid of? What's the fear of moving forward? What's the fear of not moving forward? What's the desire of really where you want to go? What's the desire for staying where you're at? Understanding these from an emotional place really helps us to make a better informed decision. And the one thing that I have experienced, now I don't know that this is a fact, but what I've experienced is that the more that you help people through that emotional experience, through their decision-making process, the less buyer's remorse, the less frustration you have, the less you have in actual fulfillment after you make a sale. Because what's happening for a lot of people when they try to separate fact from feeling is they try to just cognitively go through a decision-making process. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced the idea of the pro and con list. As a, hey, Ben Franklin close, all the reasons you should, all the reasons you shouldn't. Yeah, now we have a real reason why to move forward, and I still don't want to. What's going on with that? Well, there's an emotional thing there. And what's usually happening when we move to the pro and con list, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but if we're not identifying the emotion around those pros and cons, then it's half a job. And the reality is if we don't get to the emotions for why people want to move forward and the reason why people don't want to move forward, we're going to stay in that place where I haven't decided. Because even if we decide up here, the decision is down here that we have to make. See, we decide in our emotions, and then we rationalize, or we come up with the reasons why we're right about our decision. That's really how it works when we're selling. That's how we work when we make a decision. It doesn't have to be about money. It could be, hey, I've been working out for a month and I decide I want to go get ice cream. Oh no, emotions triggered. Oh God, because I have promised myself I'm going to be in shape and now I want this delicious treat. Well, if I don't identify the emotions around, I'm going to beat myself up if I get the ice cream, or I'm going to deprive myself and then not really be happy with myself and have a different experience of my life while I'm doing that. Because the emotions are there. But when I can really identify the emotions for what's going on with the yes and what's going on with the no, and identify the emotions of the cost of not following through, really understand all of those emotional drivers, then we can actually make the decision, because our mind won't have all of the reasons and all of the justifications and all of that stuff going. When we identify our emotions, our mind shuts up and we just know what the next right step is. See, too many people try to make a decision cognitively. They try to separate the fact from the emotion. And you notice the word I use is try, because we're just not going to be able to do it. I would love to see somebody become a robot and all of a sudden start just making decisions that don't have emotion involved in them. Every decision has an emotion involved in it. We move towards something or away from something. Moving towards it is because we desire it. Moving away from it is because we don't desire it. Sometimes it's because of fear, sometimes it's disgust, sometimes it's just we don't like it. But anytime there's a like or anytime there's a dislike, there's an emotion involved in it. And we happen to be emotional people. We human beings are emotion. That's what we experience the world with, is emotion. We explain it through our thoughts. But the reality is that I've seen, And I would love to debate this with anybody that wants to debate it. I like to talk about this stuff. The reality that I've seen is when we start thinking that we can make a decision without emotion, we've just lied to ourselves. There's another lie I like to talk about. It's funny as heck to me because people go, it's going to be okay. Well, how do you know that? And if you realize when you say it's going to be okay, if you look at that statement, one, you're telling the future about how it might be, and you have no idea what truck is coming to hit you. So you might be wrong on that. The other piece is you don't realize that you're suggesting that it's not okay now if it's going to be okay soon. And so we don't even realize that we tell ourselves little tiny lies like that all of the time. We create discontent. We create this area in our lives that doesn't feel good for us. And it makes us want to shift out of it. It makes us want to move forward or move backwards. It creates hesitation. It creates drive sometimes. But the one thing that it creates more than anything is confusion. And confused minds don't make decisions. They stay in the confusion. Now, the saying is confused mind says no, but really the confused mind doesn't make decisions. And how does the mind get confused? Well, it goes right back to emotions. It goes right back to the emotions because the reality is we have about, at least by my count, and I could be wrong, there could be more, but we have about 27 emotions and 3 different emotional states that I talk about. 27 different emotions that I've mapped out. 3 different states. We have a raw emotional state, we have a protective state, and we have a balanced state. 27 emotions that filter back and forth in these 3 states. And so our thinking is always modulated by our emotions. And so we're sitting there thinking about making a decision. Meanwhile, the emotions underneath are triggering all kinds of different thoughts. I read somewhere where we have between 50 and 80,000 thoughts a day. That's 2100 to 3,300 thoughts an hour. Where do these come from? Well, they come from the emotions, don't they? If you think about it, and a lot of people love to say, thoughts create emotion. Well, I don't think a baby ever thought about anything. But they emoted a lot when they were little babies. And then as they grew up, they learned how to think as their brain developed. And one of the first stories they adopt is that their thinking creates their emotions. It doesn't. If you look into how people are developed from baby up to adult, our emotion has been there since the beginning of our time on Earth. And our thinking develops as a secondary thing, and we create stories all about ourselves. We create stories about other people. We create stories about all kinds of stuff. Thousands of stories a day, 21,000 or 2,100 to 3,300 different thoughts a day. Some of them just repeat over and over, like I like ice cream, but most of them are just random ideas of what's going to happen or what did happen, and most of them are true. The problem with this is we believe a lot of them because we thought it. And so we live in this idea of almost like a delusion, almost this idea that we know what's going on when it's just, we just listen to ourselves and we believe it. And so when we think about the idea of beliefs, when we think about decisions, when we think about behaviors, our emotions drive our behavior. Our emotions are what creates the thoughts that we believe. And so when we get into any kind of situation where we have to make a decision, the first behavior we have is to try to figure out the answer. Then we go to town with the pro and con list, trying to figure out what we should do. And everybody has this idea that we're actually thinking through this process. What if I said we're in a pattern? What if I said we're actually not thinking anything? We're just experiencing a pattern that we've had since the beginning of our thinking life. We're walked through and we tell ourselves all of the different emotional, scary things that might happen. We tell ourselves all of the desire things that we want to happen, and we get stuck in the between what we're afraid of and what we want, what we're afraid of and what we want. And we call this making a decision. The funny thing is when we start identifying the emotion instead of trying to make a decision, get rid of the emotion for the moment, identify it and let it go, we start to balance out. We start to become more intentional. The 2,100 thoughts kind of settle down for a minute. And then we can really look, do I want to do it or not? Yes. Do I want to do it or not? No. And the silence in our mind while we make that decision is incredible. It's amazing, isn't it? To have a quiet mind is amazing. The problem we have is we keep focusing on trying to think our way through things instead of identify emotions and let go of them. When we do that, we can think clearer. We can think more strategically. We can look at what we really want. There's a level of honesty, because when we identify our emotions, we're becoming honest with ourselves. When we identify our emotions, we are actually letting go of a lot of the fears. We're identifying the desires. We're identifying what we want to do. We're identifying how we want to do it and with who we want to do it usually. We can really connect to ourselves in a way that we trust ourselves, where we feel supported by ourselves, empowered to just say, this is what I want to do, or this is not what I want to do at this time. When I got rid of the money conversation, looking at the numbers, she had her version of it, I had mine. When I got rid of the numbers and said, what do I really want? I wanted that coach. And I wanted to do even more than I've done before. And I believe that she can help me do it, because it was never about the numbers. It was about the relationship. It was never about the numbers. It was never about the statistics. It was about the emotions. And the fact of the matter is my decision was more based on, do I think she cares about me, or do I think I'm a number? And having the conversation and getting into the emotion of it, I could tell she cares. And that's what helped me to move forward. Not the numbers, not the facts. It was the emotion that helped me be able to make the decision right. Calming the emotion around the fear, really identifying the emotion around the desire, really being able to identify the emotions around that decision and ask myself, and be open to her asking me, what do I really want? Do I want to go alone? Or do I want to have somebody to help me out? Do I want to do it in a group, or do I want to do it one-on-one? When I started to realize how powerful it is to make my decisions from emotion instead of separating the emotion to try to think my way through it, my decisions have gotten better. My decisions have helped me to feel more confident. My decisions, I have never reversed. And I don't use never too often. I never use never, in fact. Just kidding. The reality is when I have that emotional connection with myself, I trust myself more. I identify with where my trouble spots are. I have more confidence. I feel empowered. I feel connected and revitalized in the direction I'm going. And the level of fulfillment is incredible because I don't try to figure things out. I identify the emotions, talk about them until the issue is resolved. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, you can't always resolve an issue. Well, if you want to win the fight, you can't resolve an issue. But if you want to have a relationship, there is no issue that you can't understand the other person's point of view. And so one of the things that I learned a little while ago was that whenever I want to step away from the argument, or they want to leave the argument, both of us are trying to be right, and neither of us is trying to understand the other person. And my best decision that I can make is identify my emotions in the moment and then listen to their point of view and help them identify the emotions that they have. And as we identify our emotions, it's the weirdest thing, because what happens is I could say, you know what, we're not agreeing. I'm feeling invalidated. I know it's not you, but I think it's me. I'm feeling unheard. I'm feeling attacked a little bit. I know it's not you, it's me. I'm doing that to myself. I'm telling myself a story, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want to hear your story. I want to hear what you're thinking. And I shut my story down for a minute to listen. And as we listen to each other, by the way, the other person ends up listening too, because when I go first, the other person follows. And we start to have a communication instead of debate. We start to understand why each person thinks the way they do. We start to connect with the emotions instead of the ideas. And through the emotions, we align. And we might not agree on the topic, but we agree on the emotion and we connect on the emotion. And we can have a relationship worth experiencing, and we can have a friendship. We can grow in that. And the decision is sometimes no, or the decision is to not work together in some way. But the relationship is built, and the relationship gets better. The relationship gets deeper because we have the conversation around emotion instead of yes or no, yes or no. We have the conversation around what makes sense based on the emotional experience, not on what I think is going to be good or bad. Because good and bad don't exist. We just either like stuff or we don't like stuff. I think I have a friend who talks about good is, does the thing serve its purpose? That's good. As far as that goes, I think that's pretty much the only way we can really identify what good is. We like it. It serves its purpose for me, then it's good. But bad is just a value. I don't like it. When we look at that type of thing, we really start to understand how this whole decision-making process and what we've been taught about decisions isn't necessarily accurate. When we think that we can remove emotion from the story, when we think we can remove emotion from the decision, well, that's a story we just told ourselves that we're never going to be able to do. We might think we did it, but we just acted on whatever is stronger, our desire or our fear. We've convinced ourselves that we did a thought process, but what we did is we acted in our pattern. We want to remove the pattern. We identify our emotions. That removes the pattern. We get clear on the emotions. We get clear on what's frightening us about moving forward with the decision yes. We get clear on what the desire is around why we want to do things. In fact, there's a lot of times the desire to do something is much stronger than good for us. Good. However, the desire is so strong, when we identify the emotions around it, we realize that it's probably not the best move. And then we can postpone until it is a good time. But if we have the emotions all triggered under there, I will, at least for me, I don't know about anybody else here, but I will, if the desire is strong enough, I will not really think it through. I'll just come up with a bunch of reasons why it's good for me. That's not thinking. That's gathering evidence. And we can gather evidence for positive, we can gather evidence for what's wrong with the situation too. When we identify the emotions, we get to an intentional place where we can really look at what we want and look at what's the fears stopping us from moving forward with whatever decision it is. It's a much cleaner way to go. It's a much more connected way to be. It's a much more balanced way to make the decisions. The problem is people get mixed up with behavior and emotion. We think, well, I'm angry, so I'm. That's not a behavior. That's not an emotion. That's a behavior. What's the emotion? I'm feeling powerless, so I'm trying to be powerful by getting angry. When we really break that down and really look at what emotion is, we can really start to be powerful in our decisions because we can identify where it's coming from. And so when you're thinking about growing your business, when you're thinking about doing business, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's some kind of service where you're providing services to somebody, when you start thinking about making the decision from fact versus feeling, realize that that's a story. We cannot very well make a decision without our emotions. It just doesn't really happen. And so identify the emotions around it. When you get into the give to get community and communication, when you get into the community, you usually get in the community by making a decision to jump into Boomerang Give to Get. You've already paid the membership, but to do that, you had to make a decision whether you want to do this or not. Whether you want to be part of the community, whether you wanted to be a lifelong learner, or maybe even just a class or two learner. You want to build your income. You want to give back. The give to get idea is a give to back kind of idea. And so you wanted to do these things. And so you went through this decision-making process. For some of you who might be listening to this, maybe you watching with somebody else and you haven't made the decision yet. Well, identify what you want. Identify what the fears are. Identify where you want to go and how we can help you do that. It doesn't matter if it's a decision to join this program, join Give to Get. It doesn't matter if it's the next decision you're going to make. When you start to really use your emotions to drive those decisions, really get to the base of what you're looking for, you're going to really enjoy the decision-making process a whole lot more. It doesn't have to be such a figure it out thing. It doesn't have to be like ninth grade geometry. God, that was terrible. It can just simply be, do I want to? Why do I want to? How do I want to? Who do I want to with? And what am I afraid of? What are the fears in this decision? Because when we can understand those, we can alleviate the fears. We can actually move into a strategy to help you move forward. And that's what every coach in Boomerang Give to Get does. We help you move forward. Christine and I talk about getting on the bullet train of action. Well, how do you take action? You get your emotion off the track so you can move forward faster. It doesn't mean get rid of your emotion. It doesn't mean separate fact and feeling. It doesn't mean throw your emotion to the side. It means identify what's going on and let go of the stuff that scares you and embrace the stuff that moves you forward. That's what it means. And we help you clear the track. We help you go fast. We help you build businesses fast. We've built ours to almost $400,000 in a year. We're going for $1 million this year. We move fast. I built a $2 million law firm in a year and a half with a lawyer. I can't do it alone. But what it is really being able to identify the emotions. Identify what's holding us back. What is your trash on the track? and then identifying what you want, creating the plan to get there and going fast at it, and then continue to identify what's in the way. Every decision we have is just a simple identification of emotion. Let it go, and the decision is there for you. Decision making is easy. Figuring it out, not so easy. When we can identify our emotions, we are connected to ourselves in a way that is powerful, in a way that is moving, in a way that is attractive, in a way that is extremely powerful for your life. And so this idea of separating fact from feeling, well, I don't necessarily think that's a fact. I think it's a myth that we could do it. And I could be wrong. I'd be more than willing to have a conversation around that. Maybe could change my mind. Until then, I want you to embrace, give to get, bring people to us, help them join the community that you joined, and take action, making the decisions, making them right. By the way, do you know how to make a decision right? Take the action that followed the decision. When you do this, you're going to start to enjoy your life in a way that you've never enjoyed it before, because you start to live 100% for yourself. That's what I got, Bruce.
Thank you, Terry. As always, excellent. Really, really enjoyed that. There's some fabulous pieces there that I think we could almost do another one just on exactly that, Terry, in terms of helping people go through the emotional state of making a decision. I agree with you 100%. The making of the decision, that's the easy part. It is going through that emotional, I'll say, process. I would almost say, Terry, I would love to invite you back and do another one just on the emotion of making a decision and how to literally help guide people through that process.
Yeah, that's actually the funny thing is that is actually what my program's all about. We have a segment that's basically emotional mastery. And what we talk about in our program is fairly simple in the idea, and a lot of people seem to think it's similar to others, but we talk about you are the center of everything you do, and everything starts with you, and then it's your team, and then it's how we build our team around a cohesion of communication. And then as we grow in our business, getting leads, making sales, fulfilling, it all centers around that idea of emotion. Because when we're emotionally out of balance, it messes with our communication, it messes with our thinking, it messes with our team, and it just moves out through there. And that's one of the sweet spots that we really work with people on, is really building high performance teams, high performance people that are understanding their emotion so that they can move faster and they don't get tripped up with the emotion. They don't end up falling into the resentment trap or the anger trap or the fear trap. They're able to really identify what's going on and make the decisions from a place of balance, and they just move faster and faster and faster. We've built many high performing teams and high performing businesses out of that whole idea of emotional health.
Fantastic. I think, yeah, like I'd love to look at September, October, having you back and literally doing, I'll say, one of our coaching sessions on exactly that. You could almost, and I love some of your saying, the bullet train to action, the trash on the tracks. I could see something right now about how to get the trash off the track to make a good decision.
Uh-oh. Bruce, you froze.
Oh,
you said I could see something.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm back now. But basically, how do I get the trash off the track to make a good decision?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. because very, very good presentation. And thank you as always, Terry.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate you. I appreciate Morrow, and thank you, Caesar, for showing up. Can't wait to see you next week or next time I'm here. And yeah.
Super. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Bye, everybody.